Okay, let me be the first to wish the Olam Agit Chodesh, at least over here in Yerushalayim, Yer Kodesh. It's already Agit Chodesh. I also want to thank the Olam for the donation to the Kollel, and David Shalom Vaita. Now let's get into the Gishmak Sugya, the Sugya of oil damaging foods, a Sugya which is a very, very Gishmak Sugya, and actually quite negay Lamaisa. Let's see what we can see. The Shulchan Aruch over here in Siman Reish Daled, in Siv Aleph, has all types of interesting cases, all types of interesting scenarios that are not so practical. Mitzvah Hashem, as we go through, we'll learn them. But there's one over here which clearly catches the eye. The Shulchan Aruch says, Al Kimcha Tisari, when it comes to flour of, over here it's talking about barley flour. So Shulchan Aruch says that when you have barley flour, you have to make on the barley flour a bracha v'shahach l'mitvar. What's the chiddush of barley flour? The emes, the Mishnah Berurah brings down, it's lav dafka barley flour. Really, on any flour, you have to make a shahakal, says the Mishnah Berurah. Who are then? Any of the chameshes minei dagin. So over here, the Mishnah Berurah tells us what exactly is the secret. Why is it that we're talking dafka about barley flour? So the Mishnah Berurah tells us what it says in the Gemara and Brachos and Daf Lamed Vav. What we saw, that the Gemara says there is a chiddush in barley flour. Koimar. And Rabbi said, don't forget this, because anybody who likes cookie dough is going to be a shahakal. It's not a mesinis. It's certainly not a maitzi. And it's going to be a shahakal because it's a flour, even though it's in a more solid form, akapanim. But the bracha is going to be a shahakal. But over here, it says the Mishnah Berurah, so what was the chiddush of flour that's made of barley any more than regular flour? If the regular flour is a shahakal, all flour is shahakal. So why does it say over here barley flour is shahakal? Says the Mishnah Berurah, there would have been a havamina. There would have been a havamina salkadaita chamina the kashala talayim. It seems to be that this barley flour causes some type of a worm. I don't know what type of worm. We all know there's something called pinworm. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's something else. But Al Kapanim, we all know that there's some type of a worm, and there could have been a tzad to say that since when a person eats barley flour, it causes a worm, which Kanir is not caused by the other flours. It causes a worm in the stomach and whatnot. So you would hear that such a thing is damaging. So Kevan, that such a thing is damaging, perhaps I would have said that one doesn't make a bracha. It causes some type of a stomach worm. Don't make a bracha. If you eat barley flour, don't make a bracha. Kamash malon gave in these land by bruchi. Shulchan Aruch says something which seems to be pashut, that you gotta know, and even though it seems to be it's a bit damaging, but still you make a bracha. A seemingly simple halacha that even when something is damaging, you make a bracha. If it would have stopped there, so then fine, we would know now that if somebody has something that damages him, so then nachaltz, if you got hana, then not gonna bracha. The problem is, and we could ask it from two places. I'll ask it over here. The Shulchan Aruch is open on the page. I tzeichen su to the Shulchan Aruch and Reish Beis. That's for the oilam. We'll see in a moment. But over here, mamish in the next sif is mamish a stira, direct stira from one Shulchan Aruch to the next. Says the Shulchan Aruch, al choimetz levad. If a person drinks plain vinegar, ein mevarech klum. B'nei mazikai. It's a blatant stira. It's such a pella. The Mishnah Berurah doesn't ask the kasha. It's a real, absolute, blatant stira. Over here, the Mishnah Berurah brings down that what's the reason why when it comes to barley flour that I make a bracha? Because saif, you got hana. If you get hana, you make a bracha even if it's damaging.
Excuse me, Eliezer, put up the Mishnah Berurah, please, if you can.
As I state in the Mishnah Berurah. The next Shulchan Aruch, mamish, 3 seconds later, in the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Reish Daled Tzid Beis, it says chaimitz, you don't make a bracha because it damages. Now, what's the Shulchan Aruch talking about? He's talking about that you're not getting hana, so then shkayach. So then, of course, you don't make a bracha. The simple reading of the Shulchan Aruch seems to say that if you have food that is damaging, you don't make a bracha. It's an absolute stira. To add, like we say, insult to injury, you look over here in Siman Reish Beis, and that's our sugya for the day. Siman Reish Beis Siv Daled, Shem and Zayis. They say that Shem and Zayis, Chazal say, the Gemara in HaRav says that Shemen Zayis is something which is good for the Zikaron. So let's say you're a Shla Mazel or a Shla Zichron. You don't remember things. You don't have a memory. So Chazal, Neman Alei Chazal, that if you take olive oil is good for the memory. Okay, so most people, they dip the challah in it. And some people, they'll put salad, the olive oil, they'll put in the salad dressing in order for the memory. But this person, let's say one day he doesn't have a salad. So he wants to have good memory though. He's, because he doesn't have a salad, so he shouldn't remember the taisis from the day before. So what does he do? He takes a spoon of oil. Does he make a bracha? So you look in Shulchan Aruch, it's a whole ganze sugya, the Olam saw already. Gemara Brachas Lamed Hey. The Shulchan Aruch says over here, Shemen Zayis im Shasa Kamushu Eina Mevar Klal. He doesn't make a bracha. Eina Mevar Klal. Because why? Why doesn't he make a bracha? Says the Shulchan Aruch Dazuke Mazik. Because it is damaging. Now, as an aside, this itself is a machlekes. The sheet of the Rambam in Brachas Ches, Halacha Beis, Shotza Shemen Levad. The way that the Rambam comes out from the sugya, I'm not going to go into the sugya now, but the way the Rambam comes out is you do make a bracha. But Rashi and the Rif, and certainly the Rosh says, Ishatzi le mishta azuki mazik loy mevarchala. Does the sheet of the Rosh, does the sheet of Rabbeinu Yeruchim, does the sheet of Mamish Kemat, and the Mekei Yosef brings it down, that's the sheet of most, and the Mechaber, like we're seeing, Shemen Zayis, if you drink it, Ein Mevar Klal. It's a Zuki Mazik. You don't make a bracha on Shemen Zayis. And there's the Psak of the Levush, there's the Psak of the Chayodam, the Graz, the Kitzah Shulchan Aruch, the Aruch Shulchan, they all bring down. You don't make a bracha on Shemen Zayis. It's Yedua that the Pri Chodesh brings down that you have to worry about the Rambam, but that's certainly not the Mekobadik Psak. So what's the Shaila? The Shaila is mamish, a blatant stira, one Amid to the next, one Mishnah Berurah to the next, one Shulchan Aruch to the next. When I have something that damages, azuke mazik. Over here by Shemin and by Chaymitz, it says that Shemin and Chaymitz seem to be damaging. And I do not make a bracha because it damages. So it seems to be if you have things that damage you, you don't make a bracha. And the nafkaminas, rabbis, are numerous. Is a person going to make a bracha if he has a condition, a diabetic condition, which does not allow him to have certain drinks, certain sweets? A person that has a cholesterol issue, is he going to make a bracha when it comes to eating meat? The doctor says, you can't have any meat. Right? He walks out of the doctor tells him, listen, I'm telling you, one more donut, you're a time bomb. He says, okay, no more donuts. So what does he do? He drives down the road. He sees a donut shop there. And he says, look, if the Heilig of Hashefer is going to find me a spot right in front, and it's a simon, he goes, no spot. They said, that's a raya. One time, I tried one time. In halacha, without two eidim, sigar neshvert. No. He goes, what? That's a raya. In halacha, you need a chazak. He tries around 3 times. What? That's a raya. You can't make a minyan with 3 people. Kid said by the 613th time, he finds a spot. He says, look, Heilig of Hashefer, I was going to not go into the donut store. And you see how Basher did this. Is he allowed to make a bracha on that donut? You read the Shulchan Aruch, it sounds like azuke mazik. It's something that's damaging. You don't make a bracha. But the problem is that when it comes to kimcha desari, our sugya says, and das steht in the Shulchan Aruch, and the Mishnah Berurah explains it, that when it comes to kimcha desari, it's damaging. But since soif you got that, no, you make a bracha. A blatant stira. Do I make a bracha on a damaging food or not? The kimcha desari says, I do, because I got a no. By oil and by chaymitz, it says you don't, because it's a zuki mazik. Thus is a shaila. Now, the emes is that if you look in the sugya, in Brachas Daf Lamed Hey, on the sugya of Shemen, Rabbi Kiva Eger, the way he learns the Gemara's kasha by a nigran, I'm sure the Olam saw, the way he learns, Rabbi Kiva Eger explains that the kasha is l'chayra, oil is azuki mazik. If you read the beautiful words Rabbi Kiva Eger says, he says, if it damages the guf, how does it pass to give a bracha and a shevach? The Chazal were not misakin brachas on something that's damaging. The Heilig of Hashefer gave you food which is good for you. If the food is not good for you on such a thing, even if you're eating it, it doesn't pass a shevach to the Heilig of Hashefer. You're going to thank Hashem for something which isn't good for you. That's a galechta. What are you thanking Hashem for something which isn't good for you? Rabbi Akiva Eiger is clearly saying, what's the pshat in the Gemara by Choymetz and by Shemen? This thing is damaging for your body. Vibald, it's damaging for your body. Of them, on that, Chazal never made a bracha. Chazal were never misakin a bracha. Memela, that's our shaila. So then if Chazal were never misakin a bracha on something that's damaging, so then why by Kimcha Desari? Is it clear in the Shulchan Aruch, and it's clear in the Mishnah Berurah, the way he explains based on our sugya, take a bracha. Now, the emes is, you can make chilukim. You know, everybody on their own could think. One such chiluk you could make is the Gemara's lashon is that it's kosher likukaini. If a person has kimcha desari, it's kosher for these worms. Look, we know in halacha it says, for example, that there are certain things, olives are kosher l'shikcha. Doesn't mean you're going to go and the next day you're going to, you're learning with your chavrusa and you told him, what do you mean? We spoke about this yesterday. Does that mean you're supposed to say to him, oh, I see you had a whole thing of olives today? Kosher l'shikcha. Kosher l'shikcha doesn't mean you're going to vade forget and it means it's something that can cause. So it's not the worst kasha. Maybe you could say that the pshat is, look, oil and vinegar are things which are be'emes very damaging. And they're so damaging that mamish, they're kuloi damaging, and they don't make a bracha on that. Mashenken, you have something which isn't so damaging, it's kosher l'kukaini. You could answer, these are terutzalach, they're not the worst kasha. I was thinking other terutzim. You could say shemen and chaymetz goes into the body and damages immediately. Mashenken, kimcha desari is something that you eat it goes into the body, these worms are formed, and then afterward it damages the body. Perhaps that's not something that we view as a direct damaging, and therefore you could make a bracha. You could say another teretz. You could say the levels of danger. I don't know. Chaymitz and oil is very dangerous. Machenken kimcha desari is not so dangerous. This is how one could have answered the kasha. And the truth is that maybe that's what Rabbi Akiva Eiger is going to answer. But you look, there's a sefer called the Divrei David. The Divrei David was written by the Nachlas David, which is, of course, much more famous to us, the Oil Shiva. But the Divrei David, the Divrei David, he mamish asks his kasha. He asks the stira from one, he's in the Gemara in Brachos, and he asks, it's a stira from one Gemara to the next. And he answers that Kimcha Desari is good for one thing at least. It's at least good for something. It just does damage to one part of your body. That's how he explains. But saif, it's good for your body. He says, Mashenkein shemen and chaymetz is bad and dreadful for your entire body. As I talked to Divrei David, the Nachlas David, again, he's going with the understanding that what's the pshat in the Gemara? Kim chedesari, you make a bracha, you gotta know. Even though it's damaging. Shemen and chaymetz are damaging, and you don't make a bracha. And the reason you don't make a bracha, like Rabbi Akiva Eiger says, is how could you give a praise to the Heilig of Hashefer on something that damages? So that's our kasha. Here it damages, there it damages. Why make a bracha here and not over there? So I said three terutzim. One is maybe it doesn't damage immediately. Maybe it damages not so aggressively. Maybe it's not a vadoyis that it's going to damage. And the Nachlas David says, no, such a thing. It vada damages, but it only damages one part. Machenkin, something that damages your entire body. So that vada you can't make a bracha. That's this mahalach. If you go with this mahalach, I'm telling you today, we're not going to say a shir in Lamdis. I'm going to tell you today, pashit pshat in the Gemara. If you go with this, when you have to write, I don't know what it says in the art school, and you're going to have to check your art school. When it says the words, or you're a mesifta, or whatever, whichever religion you're holding, some of us still have the Sansino, versteht? You're going to check it, and you're going to see when it says the words in the Gemara, azuki mazik. So you're going to see, it's going to say the same thing that it says in this Gemara as it says in the next Gemara. This food damages. This food damages. That's our stira. What's the answer? The answer is levels of damage, types of damage, etc., etc. I see over here that a whole different mahalach, which I'm telling you now, by sides, unbelievable. This is a shaila in Pashit Pshat, how to learn the Gemara, and it makes the biggest nafkaminas that you can imagine in the sugya. The Kaf HaChaim over here brings the Marikash. In the Marikash wrote the Sefer the Erech Lechem, and over there, the Marikash. This is in excuse me, Sivkat Kaf Ches. He seems to say a different pshat. How do I know he says a different pshat? The Marikash is going on a shaila about drinking lemon juice. He discusses the shaila if a person makes a bracha when he drinks lemon juice. He says lemons are very sour and they're very bitter. And Mamela, do you make a bracha when you drink lemon juice? So he says, well, l'chayra, when you drink lemon juice, it's a zuki mazik, like we find in the Gemara about chaymitz and we find about shemen. It's damaging. So he says, it's just like over there, it's a zuki. He says, yeah, but it's not really a zuki mazik. You could maybe it depends on the strength of the lemon. He says, maybe it's zuki mazik if you put sugar in. And he discusses whether or not it's a zuki mazik. He discusses whether or not if it's watered down, if it's a zuki mazik. He discusses if it's together with sugar, if it's a zuki mazik. He just says it depends on the place. If it's very sour, so then it is a zuki mazik. He says if it's so sour, you can't even eat it at chak. And he says, therefore, there would be no bracha. He says, Mashenkin, if you could eat it, so then there would be a bracha. Abaisai, what does this have to do with what we just spoke about, with shemen, with chaymitz? We just said that we have from Chazal, Eid is from Chazal, Neman alai Chazal, shemen damages the body. The Nachas David says it damages the whole body. Rabbi Akiva Eiger says, chaymitz, these things, they damage the body in a way that you can't give a praise. Who knows if lemons are damaging the body? What does it have to do with the Gemara? Gemara is talking about things that damage the body. I know because I'm reading a Gemara about oil and about vinegar. Now I know if lemon damages the body. What's the shaykhs? It is muchach from the Marikash that he's learning a different pashit pshat in the words of the Gemara. Pashit pshat. And then the kasha doesn't even start that we started with. He's learning that when we say azuki mazik, it doesn't mean the conventional pshat that this thing is damages your body. It means that chaymitz and shemen are things that are azuki mazik. They're dreadful. They're horrible to take down. They hurt to go down. Not that they mazik the body, that they're azuki. The person feels like he's getting hit when he drinks it. It's painful. It's unpleasant to drink. Very unpleasant. Memela comes again the Marikash with a gewaltige Zustellung. Sagt the Marikash, what about lemons? He discusses if the lemons are charif, if they're not charif, if there's taroivis, if there's not. He says, look, if it's very, very strong and sour and bitter and you can't get it down, so then it's just like chaymitz, which is a zuki mazik. So the lemons are also a zuki mazik. Kloimar, it's very difficult to get down. If it's very difficult to get down, that's the azuki mazik. And memela, you wouldn't make a bracha. Mashayk, if you can get it down, so then it's not a zuki mazik. The feed this Rabbi Isai, there's no kasha. What was the kasha that we started with? And it's very meduyik. The Mishnah Berurah, one sif to the other. He doesn't mention. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't even. There's no inkling that there's a steer over here. Kim chadesari Rabbi Isai is something that goes down. It's not horrible to go down. It's very pleasant to go down. Elamaya causes damage to your body. There is no klal that when something is damaging to your body, you don't make a bracha. How do I know there's no such clouds in the first Gemara? Kim chadesari is something that is bad for your body. V'afal pika, you make a bracha. So what does it depend on if I make a bracha? It doesn't depend on if something is bad for my body. It depends on did you get hana? And that's bad. What it says, back in the Mishnah Berurah. What's the lashon in the Mishnah Berurah and Siman Reish Daled? Mishnah Berurah says over here, right in the beginning, like we mentioned, Mishnah Berurah says, in Siman Reish Daled, the Mishnah Berurah says that Steve Cotton.
Oh, we can use the books.
Here it is. Tezvav. Afilu anasa mishiboilam. Why? Stal gedaita kaminetz kasher lo yevarach komash malon islay hanomine. You gotta know. You make a bracha. Now watch this. When it comes to shemen zayis, he says shemen zayis kamushu sivkotin chav zayin eino nene mimena. Why doesn't he say shemen zayis kamus shehu reish beis sivkotin chav zayin? Why doesn't he say shemen zayis kamus shehu maziko? Mazik is goof, hurts him, whatnot. No. Mishnah Berurah is learning it all depends on one factor. I don't care if it damages your body or not. It's all dependent on one thing. Does it go down? Do you get to know when it goes down or not? Oil, chaymitz do not. lemon juice, you get clear. Kimcha desari, Vadai goes down.
Page
Eye is going to
241.
damage your body. There's no cloud the way that the Marikash and the Mishnah Berurah sounds like this new cloud that when something damages your body, you don't make a bracha. There's a different cloud. If something is difficult to go down because it tastes terrible, it's horrible, then you don't get an eye, you don't make a bracha. Weiter, look at a different Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah, when he talks about chaymitz, in the next sif, Reish Daled Sif Beis, Mishnah Berurah over here says, "Oi, on chaymitz you don't make a bracha." Look the Mishnah Berurah. Chaymitz chazak, right? It's got to be chaymitz, very strong chaymitz, shiv nischametz kolkach, that when you throw it on the floor, it bubbles. Our chaymitz doesn't do that. That's the Mishnah Berurah. But if you have chaymitz which isn't so strong that it doesn't bubble when you throw it on the floor, then you do make a bracha. Excuse me?
Yeah, well, we moved from Reish Beis to Reish Daled. It's Reish Daled.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Reish Daled, Siv Kotin, Chav Daled.
Chav Daled. Yeah, Eina Mavarach.
Says the Mishnah Berurah over here. Listen to the Mishnah Berurah. He says you should know the chaymitz that we're saying you don't make a bracha on. It's what type of chaymitz? Very strong chaymitz that when you throw it on the floor, it bubbles, which I don't think our chaymitz does. Okay, I don't know what's going on in America, but over here it don't bubble. If it bubbles, send it back. Talk upon him. Mishnah Berurah says over here, he says, but chaymitz, that's not so strong. You do make a bracha. Rabbi said, if I was finishing the sentence in the Mishnah Berurah, I'd write like this. Chaymitz, that's very, very strong and it bubbles. You don't make a bracha. Why? Because that damages the whole body. But chaymitz that doesn't bubble, is not so strong, you do make a bracha. Why? I would write, because it does not damage the body. So Mishnah Berurah, he says, you know why you make a bracha? Because vada, you get hana from it. Who said anything about hana? What does it say in the Mishnah Berurah? Nachamul, the like Rebbe Kiva Eger, the like Nachlas David. They're learning that there's a different in the Mishnah Berurah's art scroll. When it said the word azuke mazik in Daf Lamed Hey, it was saying something totally different than on Daf Lamed Vav. When it said azuke mazik over there, it means that it's something that you don't get any hana from. It's not talking about the effects on the body. There's no such halacha that if something damages your body, you don't make a bracha. And how do I know that? Because on the next daf, when it says about kimcha desari, you do make a bracha, even though it damages. So why do you make a bracha? Because you get hana. Everything is dependent on that. This Abaisai is an unbelievable thing. It's a big chiddush, that mat, pasha pshat chiddush, and how you learn the pshat in the Gemara. Rav Elyashiv in the Shiurim on Daf Lamed Hey, they ask him by Shem and Zayis. It was a very interesting dialogue over there. They ask him by the sugi of Shem and Zayis. They ask him, "Salachayra on oil, there's no bracha." So they asked him, "What about a diabetic and he eats cake and it's dangerous? Should he make a bracha? A diabetic that eats cake and it's dangerous for him. Should he make a bracha?" So Rav Elyashiv says, yes. So they asked Rav Elyashiv, why? L'chayra, it's mefurish by Shem and Zayis that it's mazik, you don't make a bracha. Rav Elyashiv said, how could you even ask that? By the sugi of kimcha desari, you see clear something that damages and you make a bracha. So Elamites always totally in what? On the hana of the gof, the cheich. Did you get a no when it went down? If you got a no, you make a bracha. It doesn't matter the damages. So too the diabetic, says Rav Elyashiv. So they asked him, so but what's pshat and shemen? So he said, that's not pshat and shemen. You look in the shirim, he speaks it all out. He said the shemen doesn't taste good. They told him, yeah, but Rabbi Kiva Eger learned not like that. Rabbi Kiva Eger learned not like that. Claim what Rabbi Kiva Eger? Rabbi Kiva Eger said that they didn't misakin brachas on something that is damaging. And that's how he learns the Gemara by Shemen. So Rav Elyashiv said, okay, but what are you going to do with the sugya of kimcha desari? Now we answered. We made chilukim. That you could say, levels and whatnot. Okay. But Al Kapanim Halacha L'Maisa, Rav Elyashiv is saying that avada, if you get hana, you make a bracha. The fact that it damages, there's no such clouds. Unbelievable. But it's two different worlds. Is there a sugya that you don't make a bracha on something that damages? Now,
For the Rav goes, could I trouble you for the Maramokheim in the Shiurim of HaRav, because we cannot find it.
So 1 second, I wrote over here Rav Elyashiv brachas Daf Lamed Hey, but let's see if I have it more.
There's two pieces here on Daf Lamed Hey, one on.
There's one here. I have it here in Shiurei of Elyashiv. You have Shiurei Hagrisha.
I have HaRav HaRav, different sefer.
Not HaRav. HaRav is a different sefer.
Got it. That's the answer. Okay.
Yeah, there's a sefer that was put out called Shiurim of Yashiv. It's on the 378th page.
So I don't
And
have.
that's it.
Okay. Okay. We will look. We'll try to find it.
But over there, Imam speaks out this entire dialogue. It's an unbelievable thing, Rabbi Isa. I'm telling you. The truth is that you should ask for your money back for this year, because the Olam is expecting to hear Ganta Shir and Pilpul and Sugya. You heard nothing. All you heard was Pashit, a Machlekes, and Pashit Pshat in the Gemara. That means that there's two Dafei Yomi Magidei Shirim somewhere in the world that when they read this Gemara, one is reading it like this, one's reading it like this. And Pashit Pshat.
I would beg to differ. The Rav said is a big Lam de Shechiddish, a big Lam de Shechiddish.
We didn't even start. You're about to get to the good stuff.
The Mezukali means on the process as opposed to the actual hezek.
And this on my side, there was a great Goyin. He was called the Plutzker Goyin, right? I think Rav Aryeh Leib Plotsker, the Meshivas Nefesh. He has a tshuva over there in Siman Hay. He has a tshuva over there, and he says he's talking about a situation of where the person had to eat a certain food, a certain situation over there. And he says clear words. He says, Azuki Mazik means he has no one know. He says, but it can't be that it damages. It can't be that's Pshat in the Gemara. He says, I'll prove to you it can't be Pshat in the Gemara. How does he prove it? He says, Haraya, people the doctor tells them not to eat certain things. Excuse me, the other way. People, they take these things. They take vinegar, they take oil, and they take these things for refuah purposes. And we see it doesn't damage them. So how could you think that Pshat in the Gemara is that it damages them? And I don't know, I'm afraid to say this because it's a Neman Alai Rabbi Akiva Eiger and Divrei Chazal, and I don't know, but they say today that there's people that they manufacture these capsules of olive oil because they say olive oil is mamish, a most wonderful thing for the body. It does all types of gewaltige Sachen for the body. Just elamai, the people can't drink it because it's dreadful. So B'meila, they make a capsule that you'll be able to get it down into your body. So I'm not saying I've had the Neman Alai Chazal, and if Rabbi Akiva Eiger is right, or Rabbi Akiva Eiger is right, and it's Nishtan HaTeva or something like that, or who knows what it'll cause in the future. You know, they say you mal a baby. What does Satmar Rebbe say? He said, what's the raya? The baby's yellow. It doesn't cause any damage. So the Satmar Rebbe said, I don't know, maybe he would have lived till 100 and now he lived to the 80. I don't know. But all I know is that if you learn Pshat in the Gemara, the other way, at least, the way the Mishabura is learning, the way the Plutzker Goyim learns, the way that the Marikash learns, the other Pshat in the Gemara is that we never saw anywhere that oil damages the body. So why should we believe that it's changed? Oil doesn't damage the body. What's the problem with oil? You can't get it down because it tastes dreadful. Oh, that's a cloud. You don't make a bracha on something that tastes dreadful. And he says, Hayitachin, Atu, if the doctor tells you not to eat meat, you think you won't make a bracha? Of course you make a bracha. You have or not, you make a bracha. This is his raya. The Birkas Abayis in Aleph Mem Tes, he says, if you got that, no, you make a bracha. Make a bracha. Who cares that it's damaging and whatnot? He says it's mefurish from Kim Chadasari, Rav Nissen Karelitz in the 183rd page. He brings down the stira, and that's exactly how he says. He says if you get pleasure, you make a bracha. He says Mashenkein Shemen and Chaimitz. It's revolting as it goes down. I saw the Goyin Rishlam Zalman in the Alichas Pesach, in the Alichas Shleiman Pesach. Over there, he discusses by the Dalet Kaisis. He's discussing over there if a person makes a bracha on the Dalet Kaisis in a situation where it's dangerous for him to drink the Dalet Kaisis. So he says, you do. He says, Shemin Zayis. He says, it's not Daimon Shemin Zayis, Nachamul. He says, by Shemin Zayis, you're not Nene. Machenkin, if you're Nene, just it's Mazik, your Brias, he says, you do make a bracha. So this, I think it's borrowed that there is clear paiskim that are not like the Goyin Rabbi Akiva Eiger. It seems to be Rosh Hashanah of Liyashiv went like that. We proved from the Mishabura like that. And it's certainly the Harbe what to soy mechlan, at least on that side. The Graz, if you look and see Katan Yud, he says, Shemen doesn't damage the body. Rather, there's no hana. He says, Klor Verta. As he drinks it, Klor Verta. Now, Lemaisa. The Shaila is now, let's go one by one and see what we could do with this. So, the Svardish Gedolim, the Seist Rabbi Sion, Avavaja, they bring down, I think it was a Svardish Kitzer Shulchan Aruch of sorts. I think that it was written by Rav Toledano, and it was called the Kitzer Shulchan Aruch, and he brings down a tremendous chiddush. He brings down what happens. A person wants to have a spoon of oil. He wants to have 1 spoon of oil. Does he make a bracha? So this Svardish Gadol said that since today his Russian was Anu royim maisim b'kol yoim shoysim shemen zayis. We see people drink shemen zayis and it doesn't damage. So therefore, you can make a bari priya eitz, and not only a shahakol, you'll make a bari priya eitz because it's nachal, it's a fruit of the tree. So you'll make a bari priya eitz. And there was a Svardish Gadol that wanted to say you can make a bari priya eitz on a spoon of oil. Why? Because we see today that the oil doesn't damage the body; it's good for the body. And not only that, maisim b'kol yoim, we see people drink it, and it doesn't. Einoi mazik. Yabi Oimer of Avaja in Chelik Vav or Chaim Simim Memches, he takes tremendous issue with this. The Orlat Sion in Chelik Beis Yudalid Aleph, he says, "How could you say that?" He says, "Hare Medina the Gemara, you don't make a bracha on shemen zayis. So you want to say nishtana teva and it doesn't damage." He says, "Lay near nishtana teva." How do you know this? How do you know to say that since the time of Maran Beit Yosef 500 years ago is nishtana teva? Who has the ability to come along and say nishtana teva? So he says, how can a person come along and say that you make a bracha on oil? If you take a spoon of oil because you want for your memory, you don't make a bracha. That's what these Sfardish Gedolim say. Maisa, this l'chayra should be tali in the previous shaila. If you learn that the pshat is like Rabbi Kiva Eger, that olive oil is damaging, then you could say, I don't care what the doctors say, you have to prove me nishtana teva, and you don't make a bracha on something that there's no enough from. That damages your whole body. And who's going to come along and be strong enough and brave enough to say that today olive oil is not going to damage your body? But Mash ain't Kate, if you learn the way that we learned with the Mishnah Berurah and the Balatanya and Rishon Zalman, Rabbi Yashiv, all the Gedolim, that the pshat is that oil, the reason you don't make a bracha is not because it damages your body. Adarab, it doesn't damage your body, but it tastes dreadful as it goes down. So now you want to know today, should you take oil and make a bracha on it? So if people are soifel it, I don't know, maybe the oil today is processed. If people are able to be soifel it, go make a bracha on it. That for sure can be nishtana. Nishtana, it can't be, maybe you'll say if something is damaging koiches to the body. I don't know. So who's going to take a risk and know what's going to be in 50 years from now? But if you drink it and it tastes good, so then, or you're able to get it down, so then make a bracha.
Maybe that's the pshat in the Rashi. Rashi says zuka mazukale. He says legufe, which would indicate like Kiv Eger, and then he says that it's a chsarn in the achila. The way the Rav is explaining there, that it's the process of drinking it. Maybe that's what Rashi means, that it's a chsarn v'achalta. Could that be?
It could be. The only thing is that Rashi taka sounds a little bit more that.
Why was he Maisif the second part? He could have just said Zuka Mazda Legufe, and Rabbi Kiva Eger is right.
I got a thought that he's coming not like Rabbi Kiva Eger.
I'm saying the Rashi.
I thought he was saying that it's a strange achila because nobody would do it.
No, but the first word he says is Zuki Mazuka Legufe. Maybe that's Lafuki, the other Rishonim.
Yeah, so the truth is that I see the Meiri also says some type of a lashon like that. He says there's no anah, and then adarab it's mazik the guf. Rashi does it the other direction, but the same idea. He seems to bring both in. I'm not sure. I'm saying
the Rashi shtick on v'chalta is consistent with what the Rav says that it's
yeah. I'm not. I definitely hear the idea. I'm not 100%, but akapanim. So this would be the shaila. Now, what's the mitzias? So I took one for the boys, and I went and just had a bit of olive oil. I pattered myself beforehand. It is quite a dreadful getting down. Right. It wasn't geferlich mamish like other things. It wasn't geferlich mamish. So I don't know if somebody's going to do this. I would certainly think that to do it without a bracha and just rely on what it says in the Shulchan Aruch is you have to be very brave. You have to be very brave to just rely on Shulchan Aruch and not do anything. I don't know. I would probably try to patter it. That's what I try to say. The Aruch HaShulchan in Tikkunim Chaf Aleph says, "Mikol zeh mevur sheyesh hana b'shtiyas shemen ve'etzleinu eino yedua zeh v'ulai hashemen shalayim hayat toiv mishalanu v'tzarchiyin." I don't know. The Aruch HaShulchan already opens up the door that the way our oils are a little bit different, and I'm not sure. But for a person to go and take a spoonful and not make a bracha, I'm very, very misupik.
You're clearly pattering with a shackle, not with an eighth, right?
So I imagine that you would patter it with a shackle, and anyway, shackle works with the Evid. If you want to be a super tzaddik,
It's also.
Yeah, go for it. But don't take chocolate because chocolate is a suffix. And next week we'll learn about sugar, and you'll see that's a suffix. So I don't know what you're going to do, but that we'll try to give you eights as best as Hashem. So that's number one. That's number one. Now the Maisa, that's klape this shaila, but everybody who's listening has to have a totally different shaila. I'm giving a ganze shir over here about making a bracha on something that damages. I just showed you and proved to you that the Shita of the Mishnah Berurah, the Baal Tanya is explicit. You see Rav Elyashiv, Shlomo Zalman, they're all going that there's no makor to say if something is damaging, you don't make a bracha. We want to know one thing. Did you get a no when it goes down? You make a bracha. If not, then you don't make a bracha. Okay. Everybody here should be up in arms. And this person is doing something that's damaging for him. How's he making a bracha? We talked about the case with the diabetic. He's doing something which is damaging. How could you make a bracha? He's being over on an isser. What's the luck of a person's over on an isser? So the Shulchan Aruch and Siman Reish Daled Sif Tes, we saw that last week, says that if a person is over on an isser, there's no bracha. It's also brought in Shulchan Aruch Siman Kuf Tzadi Vav. Okay? If it's a pikuach nefesh, it said over there in Sif Tes, it's mutter. But in Kuf Tzadi Vav, it says even in Issa D'Rabbanan, there's no bracha. How can a person make a bracha? The Heilige Bashefer told him not to eat this. He's going to make a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu, and he's going to thank Hashem for the chazah that the Heilige Bashefer told him not to drink, not to eat. Das ist ein Zem Mevarech Elam Noyitz. You get to make a bracha. How can a person even have a minute to make a bracha? So here he is. He went to the doctor. The doctor zooked him betarnished essen. Betarnished. Der Zach is nicht gut. For the boich, for the das, he's got diabetes, whatever it is, the cholesterol, all the things, or the kukaini, the kimcha desari, the Heilige Shulchan Aruch tells him it's not healthy for him. The Gemara zokt it's not healthy for him. So how can he make a bracha? He's doing something which is forbidden. Now, before I go weiter, you can say, no, Rabbi Kallus, how do you know that? Maybe nishmartim l'nafshe seichem is only on pikuach nefesh. How do you know it's things that aren't life-threatening? I mean, maybe if we're talking about life-threatening, but this cocaine is not life-threatening, and most of the situations aren't life-threatening. So how do you know this? How do you know this? So the truth is that itself is a big meduber. It's machlekes rishonim. There's a Dvar Avram very famous about this in Kovna and Aleph Lamed Zayin. The Shmiras Gufa Nefesh has a whole discussion about this in his Akdama. Okay, but the emes is, Rabbi Yisai, is that everybody here knows there's a Mefurish Gemara that whether he's over on V'nishmartim, but everybody knows it's Aser. What's the Gemara? The Gemara everyone knows. The Gemara says it's Aser, Baba Kama Tzadi Aleph on the Beis. We learned this in Yeshiva, Rabbi Yisai. The Gemara says in Baba Kama Tzadi Aleph on the Beis, it's Aser L'Adam L'Chabel Be'atzmai. You're not allowed to damage your body. Not allowed to damage your body. And the Gemara's example is fasting and whatnot. And the Gemara says that a Nazir is called a chayte. And the Balatanya, the Helika Graz, the Baltanya, he says that a person, it's not your guf. You don't own your guf. The Graz in the Nizke guf in Sif Dalid, he says you can't hit your friend, even if he gets rishos. He says you can't hit your own body. It's not your body. It's not your body. The Medrash Rabbah in Bahar says, Goimel Navsha Ish Chesed. Hillel HaZaken, when he left his Talmidim, they asked him where he's going. He says, I have a guest in my house. I'm going to tend to the guest in my house. Who's the guest in his house? His body. There's a neshama that's going to last forever, and he has a guest inside the neshama. So you have to tend to it. You have to do chesed with your body, but it's not your body. It's not your body. You have to, and then what does the Kayadua, the Chayvis Alavavis, in Shai B'tachin, he says a person that kills himself, it's worse than killing somebody else. A person that commits suicide, it's worse than killing somebody else. He says, because you're karavetz alatzma, you're supposed to take care of yourself, you're supposed to worry about yourself. So Bezai, borrower, that not listening to the doctor, you're over on something. You're over on something. You're nikra chayte. So Bezai, that's our shaila. So then how are we donning the whole entire time if this person is allowed to make a bracha? If there's a bracha that is we're saying that if you go to the Leiker B'Kiveger, if you have a situation of where something damages your body, you have a situation of where something damages your body, if you got a no, you make a bracha. How do you make a bracha? If you're doing an isser, how could you make a bracha? Ein ze mevarech ela menoyetz. That this shaila taka, they Rav Elyashiv over there in Daf Lamed Vav, which I see the Olam doesn't have. They asked him the shaila about a diabetic. They asked him about cake. That was the shaila they were discussing, that you're having cake, excuse me, and he's a diabetic and it's unhealthy for him. So the shaila is, could he make a bracha? So Rav Elyashiv said that they asked him, it's like nevelos and treifis, and matonish machan a bracha, because ain't zim mevarech ela menayis. So Rav Elyashiv said that maybe they wanted to try over there that perhaps it's only by nevelos and treifis, because that's an isser mamish on the chayfetz. So Rav Elyashiv said, what's the nafkamina? Who cares if it's on the chayfetz? Are you allowed to do this? You're not allowed to do this. So then if you're not allowed to do this, so then it's a problem. It's a problem to make a bracha. So Rav Elyashiv said, that says if you look in okay. So Rav Elyashiv said that since one crumb is not going to harm him, so he has to make a bracha on the piece of cake. Typically, if you'd have one crumb, you'd have to make a bracha on one crumb. So typically that he's making the bracha on the one crumb, and the whole piece of cake is dangerous for him. But on one crumb, he has to make a bracha. Oh, Vibalti has to make a bracha on one crumb. So therefore, it's chal the bracha. You can dan in a moment on the bracha achrayna. That might be the nafkamina. But lefi this, it's a miyushiv. Lefi this, it's miyushiv. And a chanami, you have to make a bracha. You gotta know. It's an avera. Yes, he's doing an avera. He's doing an avera. So why in the world do you let him make a bracha? Okay, because on the first crumb, you have to make a bracha. You can declare, but that maisa is a mitzvah above avera. Okay, maybe it's not at the same time, because the first bite that goes in, that wasn't an avera. You could dan. Maybe we don't look at his das in general. Das is l'chayah. Now the Chashukei Chemed has a shaila.
Zilberstein.
Rab Zilberstein, our Rebbe from the Aguda, he's our Rebbe, right? He has a shaila that the shaila is where. Let me see if I can actually tell the olam where it is. Hold on one moment. I think this is it. In Brachas Lamed Vav, I think it's in the Kavanoki. He has a tshuva sefer, Kavanoki, Aleph Samech Beis. Aleph Samech Beis. Aleph Samech Beis. So 1 second, I'm just seeing. So he has a shaila. One second, sorry, everybody say. Okay, so the shah is like this. The Chashukei Chemed, it's on the 225th page, I see over here. He brings an Avis to Rab Nosson. Now the Avis to Rab Nosson says, let's say a person eats a food that's not good for the body. So the Avis to Rab Nosson says he's over on 3 lavin. What are the 3 lavin he's over on? So Zok the Avis to Rab Nosson, he says, first of all, he's over on Biza Atzmai. He's being mevaza himself. Let's say he's being mevaza himself. He's a zoyl l'sayveya. Well, what's the issue of being a glutton? You're a ben saramara. Okay, maybe you don't have the din of a ben saramara, but you're doing ben saramara activities. The second issue that you're over is you're over on bizayin of the oichel, paltashchis, because you're eating an oichel which is probably should be used for something else. The third thing you're over on is you made a bracha shaloi kitikuna. You're making a bracha latala. You're eating something which is not good for you, and so therefore it's a bracha latala. So Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein asks from this Avos Rav Nosson on this side, why is it that the Avos Rav Nosson says he made a bracha shaloi kitikuna? Typically, that at least you're right. I'm eating a food which is bad for me, but typically that at least I have to make a bracha on the first dot. Rav Elyashiv decided l'chayr muchach. You have to make a bracha at least on the first dot. At least the first dot Rabbi Yisai is something that warrants a bracha, and that warrants a bracha, and it's not bad for me. Everyone agrees that the first dot is not going to be a problem. So he asked this question on Rav Elyashiv. Now, if you look over there, you'll see he answers something that seems to be a nice chiddush. He says, Weist ois, you have to be machalik. Rav Elyashiv is talking about a case that if the person had kavanah on the first dot, so then you have to make a bracha. But let's say I had kavanah on the whole entire food, so then my bracha is going on the whole food, so that's one big mitzvah babaveri, you can't spalt. If I have das on the first dot, so then that's a bracha, it's kvaldik. Mashenkin, if I have das on the whole food, so then that's already going to be a problem, because if Balja das on the entire food, so then that's already considered a bracha on the whole food. I guess kain a mitzvah hababa aveira. This Rabbi Isai is a tzarchi and gadol. Tzarchi and gadol. Rabbi Isai, if this is true, then how did we answer anything? Rabbi Isai, by Kimcha Desari, is there anybody that's going to open up a Mishnah Brura and know this teretz of Rabbi Zilberstein? Shlita? Who's going to know this? I read Kimcha Desari. Kimcha Desari, I take flour, barley flour, I eat it, I make a bracha. It should say over there in the Mishnah Brura, Aval Kamuvan, you have to make sure to only have kavanah on the first dot, because after a while, those all of it adds up and it's going to make a problem. So you can't have dots on everything. It doesn't say that. It sounds like
he's saying it he's only saying it in the Shveres Chiddush. So
yeah, but he's saying it in the Shveres Chiddush. The Shver was coming to answer up this kasha. The Shver was coming to answer up. What's the pshat?
Yeah, but Rabbi Yashiv is not the pasha pshat in the Mishnah Brura. I mean, that's a chiddush.
Rabbi Yashiv was coming to answer a pshat. It's mamash kasha. Everyone has to ask. Forget the Mishnah Brura. You have to ask kasha on the Mishnah Brura. You have to that kasha that we asked is a kasha on the Gemara. It's a kasha on Mishnah Brura. It's kasha on everyone. It's kasha on us. How can it be that you have to make a bracha on something that's damaging? HaRav, he's at least a chayte. So what was the answer of Yashiv? Beseder. So on the first dot at least. So now, if you're going to come along and say, yeah, on the first dot, that's only if you have kavanah for the first dot. So then invite the shver, because nobody's going to know that. There's nobody that's going to open up any of the Shulchan Aruch, the Gemara, the Mishnah Brura, and anybody in the world that's going to chop this. He's going to see that when something's damaging, you make a bracha. That's it. The emes is Rabbi saying, Lo zachisi lohavin the ganze kasha from the Avos to Rav Nosson. The Avos to Rav Nosson says you made a bracha shaloi kitikuna. Does that mean that it's a bracha levatala? Maybe it means that it's not a spitz bracha. It's not a spitz way of giving praise to the Heilige Bashefa. I think everyone understands that. I don't know if the Avos to Rav Nosson is a clear geder, that a clear iser. In the Sefer Kavanaki Derech Agav, and over there in the Hakdama, he brings this shaila of Rav Elyashiv was asked of Aaron Leib Shteiman, Zeicher Tzadik Levracha, who I think we all knew very much about eating, as Rabbi Gottesman told us before. That's when I walked in, when I walked in from the Kollel. So Aaron Leib was a very, very big maven in food, Kleimar. He was asked this shaila that they asked Rav Elyashiv, and Rav Aaron Leib has a very interesting chakira. He said it's true on one bracha you have to make a bracha, one dot you have to make a bracha because it's not mazik. But he said, but maybe you can declare that each and every crumb adds up to the cheshbon, right? And maybe that crumb is a chelik of the problem, and therefore basoif we could view that first crumb as being a problem also. It's not to say not like Rav Elyashiv. What's the thought that they not like Rav Elyashiv? Because it's true that crumb needs a bracha, but by saif, once you can have the whole entire piece of cake, so then it all adds up to being one of the troublemakers that you're eating. So therefore, how could you make a bracha on that? You could clear with this, can I make a bracha achrona? Because you could say the opposite of Rav Aaron Leib. You could say, there's not any dot that I could specifically say that he's the problem. You could clear these things at by sides. Lay bar. Lemaisa, the truth is that you're going to have to say something here. Because let's go back. How did Rebbe Kiva Eger, don't forget, learn the Gemara? Rebbe Kiva Eger learned the Gemara that if you have something damaging, so then you don't make a bracha. Rebbe Kiva Eger says you have something that damages the body, you don't make a bracha. And that's Rebbe Kiva Eger learned the Klal Gadol. When you have something that damages the body, you don't make a bracha. It sounds like Gavaldik. Rebbe Kiva Eger is like this idea that we're saying. How could you give a no? But Rabbi say, can you ask a kasha on Rebbe Kiva Eger? I don't understand. The first dot of oil that you took doesn't damage the body, no? Rebbe Kiva Eger learned that the nekuda of oil and the nekuda of vinegar is not that it's dreadful going down. He learned that it damages the body. Rabbi Yashiv just told us the aside, if there's one dot that doesn't damage the body. So then Rabbi say, why is it that you shouldn't have to make a bracha? Typically, that dot, the first dot, requires a bracha. It's a good kasha by or not a good kasha? What's the other saying?
Can you say it again?
Again, we're saying that Rav Elyashiv told us his side that there's no shaila even if something is damaging, but the first dot of it isn't damaging, so you don't have to make a bracha on that. Rabbi say you could ask that on the Ganser Rabbi Akiva Eiger. How did Rabbi Akiva Eiger learn the whole study? Rabbi Akiva Eiger learned that Chazal were misakin a bracha on something that's damaging. Okay, why? I mean, the first dot isn't damaging. The whole thing is when you drink oil, it's damaging. I saw one sefer ask this kasha on Rabbi Akiva Eiger. It's a kasha or not a kasha?
Maybe Rabbi Akiva Eiger holds the first thing is damaging. Who says not?
It's probably not mistaber. One dot of oil is going to damage the whole goof. It's not so mistaber. I mean, it's true.
Long term, maybe Chazal
maybe.
Long term.
But I was thinking something way more pashut. I was thinking that the pshat is that Rabbi say Rabbi Akiva Eiger himself answered this kasha. Rabbi Akiva Eiger said Chazal weren't misakin on a type of food. Our cases that we're dealing with is different. The foods are wonderful foods. You shouldn't be eating them, Tatala. But the foods that we're dealing with are wonderful foods. Rabbi Akiva Eiger is saying olive oil in general is a food that damages. Yes, the first dot, not the first dot. It's not toys. But Chazal are not going to be misakin a bracha for a food which in general is a damaging food. That has nothing to do with Rabbi Elyashiv's side. Rabbi Elyashiv is saying his side that if you have a food which isn't in essence damaging, for you it's damaging, it's damaging. For Shtei took the Takanas brachas on it. Now you want to know, but for you it's an avera. That was our question. Oh, okay, so the first dot wasn't an avera. Pashit. As I mean, it's a pashit of our. So this Rabbi say is basically the sugya. There's one last thing over here, is that the Alicha Shleima in Perek Tes, in page 225, over there, he dons on this shaila, and he wants to say a different mahalach. I'll read you his lashon, and we'll be messiahim with this. Shlomo Zalman, he wants to say a different mahalach. I'll just say it out. He wants to say a different mahalach, Shlomo Zalman. He wants to say, what was the shaila? We asked the shaila that doctor tells you not to eat this. Dr. Gemara, the Gemara told us not to eat this kukaini. It's dangerous. But you make a bracha. How could you make a bracha if something is damaging? You're at least doing an avera. Well, the Ashiv wants to say, okay, but the first dot is nicht gefährlich. Shlomo Zalman says, gewaltige word. Shlomo Zalman, does everybody listen to the doctors? Maybe they should, but they don't. Shlomo Zalman, if people don't listen to the doctors, if right people aren't listening to the doctors, of them zukmin, shoy mepsoyim Hashem. So he says, first of all, that's how you can explain kimcha desari. What's the pshat in kimcha desari? What's the pshat in kimcha desari? The pshat is that most people might eat it. So if most people eat it, you can't say he's doing an avera. He's not right. It's this, that. Shoy mepsoyim Hashem. It's not. The Eilig Hashem is mevater zukman in such a case. So b'meila, that's the pshat. What was the kasha we asked that it's damaging? You can't do it. On those things we say shoy mepsoyim Hashem, and b'meila won't even be damaged. So b'meila you can't say there's an avera. Now, if you go like this, now it's not so pashit. If something is vadai damaging, you don't say shoy mepsoyim Hashem. Chaim Oizer has a tshuva. If something is vadai damaging, you don't say shoy mepsoyim Hashem. So maybe this could be mamash and afkamina. Let's say you have a person, he knows something is for sure damaging. He's a diabetic, and he knows if he's going to have this cup of Coke, he's for sure going to have a sugar rush, and he's going to have to take a shot or whatnot. But what could you do? What does it say on the bottle? Coke is that does the Leben dachsich. Nein, steht in the bottle. Coke is life, right? So Mela, was kemach tin? Daf drinking the Coke with daf meiser nefesh. Was kemach tin? So Mela, he's willing to be meiser the nefesh. So if you learn that the lumdus is shoyim p'sayim Hashem, not going to make a bracha. Because it's vadai damaging. You can't say shoyim p'sayim Hashem, Mr. Pessi. Hashem is not helping you. So the Mameli can't say after him, you can't say shoyim p'sayim Hashem. Masha, if you learn like Rav Elyashiv, okay, so one dot, you have to ask the diabetic if one dot's a problem. But assuming that one dot is not a problem, so then he would have to make a bracha, and that'll be mamash and afkamina. That'll be mamash and afkamina. Would he make a bracha on one dot? L'chayra. on one dot would he make a bracha. So Abaisai, das is the Gishmak Sugya. Very Gishmak Sugya. Shaila number one, Pashib Shat in the Gemara. When we say the words Azuki, I got to write it into your Gemara, like when you were, like you were in 11th grade, you got to write it into the side of your Gemara. What does it mean? Shem and Zayis is Azuki Mazik. Mind this is Zugin, it damages the body. Or are you going to write on the side of your Gemara that it's something that is horrible and doesn't go down, it's repugnant, it doesn't taste good, it's repulsive. By the sugya of Kimcha Desari, you're going to write on the side of your Gemara, that's Pashit, you get Anah, and it damages the body. So we asked the stira, according to Rebbe Kiva Eger, it's mamish, a big kasha. You have to answer all types of chalukim. What's the level of damage? What's the vadoyis? Which part of the body it damages? Okay, that's Rebbe Kiva Eger. And then you're going to have to say, according to Rebbe Kiva Eger, what about the first drop? So Rebbe Kiva Eger will answer you, who cares, the first drop? Chazal were masakin on a damaging type of food. Masha Ein Kain, if you learn the sugya the way the Mishabura, the Balatanya learn, and that's how the Gedolei Olam seem to go. The pshat in the Gemara is Azuki Mazik by Shemin means that it's horrible. It doesn't go down, it's horrible. Not that it damages my entire body. Masha Ein Kain, I think I said it wrong by Rebbe Kiva Eger before. I'm sorry in the Sikum. Rebbe Kiva Eger is going to write on the side of the Gemara, Azuki Mazik means that it damages the body. The way we're going to write, it'll feed the Mishnah Berurah upon in the side of your Gemara, you're not going to write it damages. You're going to write it's horrible, doesn't go down. So then you have no kasha. Kim Chudasari, you have no makim to say when something is damaging that you don't make a bracha. You do make a bracha if you got a nah. You get down today on olive oil. If you get a nah, you make a bracha. You get down on lemon juice. If you get a nah, you make a bracha. These things could change. It depends on the mitzias. Maybe the oil is not going to be, it's going to be more processed. It's going to be easier to drink, etc., etc. We had a different shayla. How are you allowed to do this? Hooray, a person's not allowed to damage himself. First of all, maybe there's a shayla of Nishmart Ma'oid, Ayin Devar Avram, Aleph Lamed Zayin. Even if you want to say he's not over Nishmart Ma'av Sheseichem, but he's over in the Gemara, Bab Kamat outside he based that the Gemara says that he's Nikra Choyti. And the Shulchan Aruch HaRav, the Balatanya brings down in the Niska Guf, and Siman Dalet, it's not your Guf. And the Chayvus Levavis, he tells us the biggest Avera is a person that's not your Guf, it's not your Guf, it's worse. Your Karvet's a lot, you're supposed to take care of yourself. So what's the pshat? You're not listening to the doctor. And how are you making a bracha? The Shulchan Aruch and Siman Kuf Tzadi Vav says if you do an Avera, you're not allowed to make a bracha. And that's what it says also in Shulchan Aruch and Siman Reish Dalet Siv Tet, you're not allowed to make a bracha if you're damaging yourself. Of them Zokman will say no. Soktav Yashiv, yeah, but one dot, that's not called damaging. The Nervarin Leib declared a Shaila. Maybe that dot could be mitzdarif to shpetedika dots, and therefore it is an Avera. You could down on the bracha achreina. We saw another Shaila, L'chayra, the Avostar of Natzen says that it's not a bracha kitukuna. That's a shver kasha. That's a shver. It's not a shver kasha. It's shver that's a kasha. L'chayra doesn't really mean that it's a bracha levatala. If you want to know if he had das on the whole entire food, mistam, even there you have Revel Yashiv. You still have to make a bracha. But then we declared maybe you could say a different teretz. You could say that if people don't listen to the doctors, so then you can't say that such a thing is considered to be an Avera. And Afkamin is going to be, why? Because Shaimer Psalm says, Hashem says, but that you can only say on something that's not a Vadoyis, Dr. Rav Chaim Oizer. On something that's a Vadoyis, something that Vada is going to damage, of course you can't say Shaimer Psalm Hashem. The fear of Shalom Zalman, you won't make a bracha. In the case of the diabetic, a cup of Coke. The fear of Yashiv, maybe you will, because on the first dot, you're going to have to make a bracha.
I think Ramesha in his original truth about smoking invoked Shem Psalm Hashem, because there it wasn't yet, it was in the 50s or whatever, it wasn't yet a Vadai, and later the Velt Nemton that Shem doesn't apply anymore because it became a Vadai. We need to share in Shem Psalm Hashem at some point. Wherever.
That's Hashem.
Okay. Yeshakach, thank you very much, HaRav. I heard the word sugar in your previous statement. I don't know if that's what you want to talk about next week. You'll call me and let me what you want to talk about.
If we get to Amid Beis, we'll do sugar. If we get to Amid Aleph, we'll do Garinim. It's up to the Olam.
Okay, very good. We'll discuss it.